Hello, everyone. My name is Eunjoo Pacifici, and I am the Chair of Regulatory and Quality Sciences in USC School of Pharmacy. I am accompanied today by Professor Terry Church, who is an Associate Director of our undergraduate program. And we are delighted to introduce you to the discipline of regulatory science and the career opportunities it could provide. So during this introductory session, you will meet some of our faculty who will present specific regulatory science topics, and then a few of our graduates to see where they are now. We will leave time at the end for a few Q&A. So what is regulatory science? Many of you may not have heard of the term. Well, it is a new discipline that converges science, law, and business. Specifically, regulatory science relates the regulatory and legal requirements of biomedical product development, food and dietary supplements, to the scientific research needed to ensure the safety and efficacy of these products. So it goes almost without saying during this time of COVID-19 pandemic that regulatory science is all around us. From our concerns regarding accuracy of diagnostics, to our hopes for safe and effective medicines and vaccines, regulatory science also impacts everyday products that we use, wear, the food that we consume, and even the products that we use to care for our animals. And underneath these headlines that we see every day in the news, like the development of vaccines and off-label uses of drugs, are in fact regulatory concepts regarding the importance of clearly demonstrating safety and efficacy of products before they become widely available. In our educational program, we focus primarily on products that are regulated by the FDA. It turns out that this is a large sector. The sales of these products amount to nearly $2.6 trillion per year and represent 20 to 25 cents of every dollar spent by American consumers. I'm sure that these products affect all of you. So Professor Church, what are your thoughts on the career opportunities in this field?
Thank you, Dr. Pacifici. There is a high demand for talent to work in this very specialized field. For example, if you search on the US Department of Labor website for regulatory jobs, you can see that there are almost 1 million positions, of which almost 80,000 are vacant. This was the figure in 2016. So you might wonder where this trend is heading. And here is the 2018 figure, which shows that we have crossed the 1 million mark and the open positions are now over 90,000. The trend is clearly moving upward. In fact, we anticipate this trend to continue for at least the next decade. We think this presents a talent crisis for the industry and have recently published our findings. But what about the salary? This information was collected by looking at payscale.com and glassdoor.com in multiple states for regulatory and quality related jobs. Looking for the job descriptions, I noted the level of education required per position, and then averaged the salaries for BS degrees, and also for MS degrees. For example, if you are a sophomore or a junior completing a progressive master's in regulatory science, this could increase your average starting salary by nearly $40,000 than with a BS alone. Basically, for an additional year of school, you can increase your earning potential substantially. So where do regulatory professionals work? As can be expected, the highest proportion work in the pharmaceutical industry itself. But there are other work settings where regulatory science professionals find themselves working. For example, academic institutions, consulting firms, CROs, and government, to name a few. And this career is not just for individuals with science backgrounds, because almost every aspect of the industry is regulated, from manufacturing to sales and marketing. Taking this into account, Dr. Pacifici, would you walk us through the regulatory science program at USC?
Thank you, Professor Church. So our goal in regulatory and quality sciences is to guide you towards your dream job. With our vision to train the next generation of professionals as leaders in this exciting field by providing a training ground for talented professionals involved in the development and commercialization of regulated products. We offer multiple graduate programs that can be customized to meet your career aspirations, from a doctoral degree in regulatory science to multiple master's programs to meet individual needs, and certificate programs for those who need to enrich their expertise without committing to a full degree program. Our courses focus on specific subject areas and are designed to prepare you for the workplace by integrating real-world scenarios, team projects, and communication skills so that you will stand out among your peers. The interesting thing is that all of our courses can be taken on weekends and also during the summer semester. During the week, our students conduct research with our faculty on regulatory science topics or work in our consulting center with Dr. Benson Kuo to help advance projects to products. We also partner with industry sponsors for an experiential internship program under our TRACS initiative. And if you happen to secure an internship or even a full-time position during your studies, as many of our students in fact do, our course schedule allows you to continue your education while you work. So now you will hear from some of our faculty who will share with you their areas of educational focus, starting with Dr. Roger Clemens.
Thank you, Dr. Pacifici and Dr. Church, for the excellent introduction to our program. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Roger Clemens. It's been my pleasure to be part of the USC regulatory science team for nearly 20 years. Let's take a snapshot of the opportunities of this dynamic field of regulatory science that is essential in all commercial food and medical products, which are distributed via the global market. Everyone's health is impacted by the safety and availability of food and dietary supplements. The regulatory environment for foods, from agricultural crops to food selections at the local grocery store, to a store outlet and restaurants, continue to expand. With this expansion, there are opportunities to have a significant impact on the availability of food and global health. One of my recent students commented on the importance of regulatory science and how our faculty engage students preparing for terrific careers, which in part require an understanding of the breadth and resources of this emerging field. The fundamentals of regulatory science encompass an array of career opportunities and challenges at the intersection of economics, regulations, and employment. With respect to economics, the food and agribusiness are connected to the environment, a passion for so many seeking to protect the earth and its innate resources. This is a $5 trillion industry. This represents approximately 10% of global consumer spending and 40% of global employment. With respect to regulations, they are so diverse on this global stage. They reflect traditions, cultures, scientific interpretations, and a spectrum of emerging technologies. And then lastly, employment. The largest and even the small entrepreneurs typically employ established and emerging talent. Value of this talent is increased with the fundamental knowledge of regulatory science. Everyone would like to have a reasonable compensation for their knowledge base and scientific skills. This 2020 graphic depicts salaries for men and women working in various food technology demanding environments across the United States in 2019. While this graphic continues to suggest salary disparity between men and women, my more than 20 years of experience within that industry supports the position that everyone was salaried according to his or her knowledge and skill set. Well, who's responsible for food safety? There are many regulatory agencies responsible for the safety of food and dietary supplements in the United States. First, food safety is everyone's responsibility, from home to restaurants, to ingredient suppliers, for food suppliers, and even those involved with agriculture. This is a regulatory maze for the untrained eye. This maze comes in focus through education and regulatory science and experience in the industry. An industry that needs qualified individuals whose background includes a spectrum of disciplines, training, and experience. While the general public relies on the FDA and USC to assure safety of food supply chain, both domestic and international and other agencies at the federal level provide critically important contributions to the complete safe food supply. To understand some of the fundamentals, it's key that we have working definitions. These are 6 of some of those definitions. As you dive into regulatory environment for foods and dietary supplements, it's important to have this kind of fundamental definition. Some of the definitions are linked in this graphic. For example, if food is consumed by mouth, whereas any substance given by any other route of administration is considered to be a drug under US regulations. Organic foods, very popular market, valued more than $53 billion in the United States, reflects specific regulations under the National Organic Program. Importantly, these regulations refer only to the process by which food and food ingredients are managed from crop to consumer. Regulations do not specify or even assume any difference in the safety or nutritional value from conventionally grown crops. Natural, what's natural? Natural is yet to be clearly defined by the FDA, therefore the term has triggered many litigations under US law. And free, the general consumer would think free means 0, but does it? For example, fat-free milk contains less than 0.5% fat. Similarly, gluten-free means the product contains less than 20 parts per million of gluten. Thus, this is an example that the term free has clinical and technical limitations as regulatory standards, which are discussed in our program at USC. Cosmetics. This is a very popular topic. Cosmetics are evaluated for the safety as well. However, they, like many products, are not subject to pre-market approval by any federal agency or by any organization. In fact, the Cosmetic Ingredient Review, established by the FDA more than 35 years ago, relies on the international collaboration to assure the safety of ingredients used in cosmetics. And many of us have animals, and we have companion animals. I do as well. And the first slide indicates here that under the jurisdiction of the FDA, the Center for Veterinary Medicine established a memorandum of understanding several years ago with the Association of American Feed Control Officials, also known as AFCO. AFCO provides the guidance and recommends standards for foods and feeds directed to companion animals and livestock. AFCO, which is publicly available, publishes its findings, its tome of information annually. It's important to note that all companion animal feeds must provide the nutritional profile as outlined in AFCO, from pups to very adults. These feeds are science-based and provide complete nutrition for companion animals through the spectrum of life stages. In this case, on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see we clicked on the quality seal for the National Animal Supplement Council. It's important to note that dietary supplements directed to companion animals are technically not legal in the United States. However, this council provides safety guidance for supplements directed to animals. The Center for Veterinary Medicine exercises its enforcement discretion in the apparent absence of adverse events. And in summary, on the left-hand side of your screen, as you may have assessed during this brief presentation, there are many opportunities and challenges in regulatory environments that include foods, dietary supplements, and feeds. And you also see on the right-hand side of your screen, it is important to these areas of expertise that we also realize that with regulatory responsibilities, one must have exceptional communication skills, both in written forms and oral presentations. Thank you for your interest in the regulatory science program here at USC, especially those regulations that impact the safety of foods and their ingredients, dietary supplements, and products directed to animals and livestock. Thank you very much and have a great day. And now I turn the mic over to my friend and colleague, Dr. Daryl Davies.
Thank you so much, Roger, for that very nice, well expressed regulations. And I think what it was really showing was the multitude of career opportunities are as diverse as the products that are regulated. So welcome everyone. My name is welcome and thanks for joining our information session. I am the director of the Management Drug Development Master's Program in our Department of Regulatory and Quality Sciences. I'm also the Associate Dean of Undergraduate Education of the School of Pharmacy, as well as a graduate of the School of Pharmacy itself. The MDD program was originally developed to expand topics related to regulatory science, but with an emphasis on non-clinical or preclinical drug discovery and development. The driving theme of the MDD program stems from my own interest in drug discovery, where at USC I run a translational discovery lab focused on the development of novel therapies for alcohol and substance abuse, as well as neurodegenerative diseases, including Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. So what is translational research? Translational research includes the early steps of identifying a protein target biochemically or cellularly, as illustrated in this figure, or at the cellular level to advance a molecule through efficacy and safety studies in animals, all the way up to advancing into the clinic. These topics are all part of our program. Notably, the many facets of drug discovery represent a large number of different career opportunities, depending on the individual's experience and interest. The strategies incorporated in drug discovery, drug development sound simple, with over 2,000 companies and over 10,000 R&D projects ongoing. However, as shown in this box, only 20 to 30 product launches have occurred per year since 2000, illustrating the significant need for trained regulatory scientists. Although usually mapped as a linear process, as shown above, in reality, drug development is distinctly nonlinear. Even within a drug class, different approaches are necessary to satisfy the challenges of developing safe and effective medications. And in this slide, I've added what looks like these black boxes I want to point out to just illustrate some of the topics we cover in our program. And for some of you joining us today that have been in my lectures at USC, you've probably recognized this slide. But thinking about the neurotransmitter histamine that binds to the H2 or the histamine receptor in the stomach, the increased binding of histamine leads to what we know as acid stomach or heartburn, commonly known as heartburn. And so to try to address this problem, scientists came together and said, let's look at the structure of histamine. Let's work on molecules and see if we can't develop molecules that can bind to the H2 receptor, but not to activate the receptor, but to block the receptor. And so what I'm showing in this second box is some of those early attempts where we went from target validation to screening for targets to starting to identify hits, screens to hits, hits to leads. And that work over a period of 1 or 2 years through various companies resulted in this really exciting, what was thought to be an exciting molecule. Unfortunately, when this molecule went through animal testing, which still showed progress, but into clinical trials, the program was terminated because the sulfur group led to some type of toxicity, which was, of course, an unwanted adverse effect. And so the reason we're showing this nonlinear, but this iteration, the program wasn't dead, but rather other scientists looked at the molecule and identified additional changes that could still meet the intent of the program, block the receptor so you reduce heartburn, but at the same time reduce the toxicity. And what that resulted in is this product shown up here. Many of you might recognize this. It's shown on the shelf as Tagamet. But Tagamet, when it was out and started to be used, was recognized. It had lots of benefit, but there was at times, it had shortcomings for some patients. That led to the development by Glaxo, a second product that's been in the news lately because of other reasons, Zantac, which is again was developed starting from that initial histamine receptor, going through this entire process, and then coming up with these novel molecules that are out on the product shelf today. So I think this illustrates the many different facets and the large number of various areas that discovery represents that can translate to exciting career opportunities. The reason that so few individual molecules ever make it into the clinic is that there are so many different things that can go wrong along the process. We recognize that we are working on a biological system that is wrath with twists and turns that can derail the drug discovery development pathway at any point, as I showed in that earlier slide. As scientists, we are always want to continue our investigations of a particular molecule. However, as drug hunters or drug developers, which is what our MDD program is all about, one needs to learn how to recognize when it makes sense to continue advancing the molecule to the next step in the process, and when it makes sense to terminate the molecule and move to a different molecule that has a better chance of success. Again, as I demonstrated, the one molecule with that sulfur had some toxicity, but continuing that investigation led us to the development of both Tagamet and Zantac. So if the molecule is going to fail, one of the take-home messages is it's better for it to fail early than to fail late. The sooner you can get off that chasing a molecule that was going to eventually fail anyway, the more successful you're going to be. The struggle to overcome the vast number of hurdles to successfully launch a new product is an overwhelming process. Learning how to deal with these challenges is what we emphasize in our program. Understanding the strengths and weaknesses in a discovery program is what enables a student to become a valuable asset to the company. By this time in my presentation, I think it should be obvious that the workforce necessary to develop pharmaceutical products is one that demands a multitude of specialized skills. Our program is designed to help foster these skills in our students. Importantly, these skill sets translate into well-paying careers. You notice the theme of this presentation? These are highly skilled opportunities, lots of opportunities, and these are well-paying careers. Unfortunately, many of our experimental successes in cellular and animal models never fully translate to success in the clinic. Consider the 20+ years of great outcomes in animal models of Alzheimer's disease, but not a single molecule has made it through clinical trials and out into general use that can mitigate or reverse Alzheimer's symptoms in patients. The ongoing challenges of disease versus man ensures that careers in drug discovery industries will continue to be in high demand. But careers in the pharmaceutical industry aren't limited to discovery and development of drugs, as I've presented in my presentation, or in foods, as was presented by Roger's presentation. So continuing with this line of presentation, I want to introduce to you Dr. Susan Bain, who will share with you some of the many career opportunities linked to the medical device industry. Dr. Bain, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Davies. I'm happy to be here, and I thank all of you for being here today to learn more about this wonderful field with cutting-edge science, business, and regulations that bring these products to you. I'm Susan Bain, and I'm an assistant professor in the Regulatory and Quality Science Department at USC, and I focus in the area of medical devices and the medical product quality. Although I've been at USC for only 3 years, my involvement with the program began as a student in the first cohort of the Regulatory Master's Program in 2000. My journey continued over the years as a guest lecturer until 2008, when I was accepted into the first cohort of the Doctorate of Regulatory Science program. I graduated as one of the first 3 in the world to have that degree and the first woman to earn the Doctorate of Regulatory Science. So we ask, do we boldly go where innovators dare? Our answer is yes. The vast and diverse world of medical devices is innovating and exciting. So I want to ask you today, can a video game be a medical device? The answer, yes. And it's very, very recent. As of June 15th, 2020, was just a few months ago, FDA approved the first video game to improve attention in children with ADHD, the first of its kind. So I ask, do you know what a medical device is? Medical devices are innovative and diverse and transcend many worlds. The world of cyberspace, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, as well as important life-saving devices like deep brain stimulators, insulin pumps, gastric stimulators, and cardiac pacemakers. Important medical devices have been in the forefront of our news lately. You've probably seen some of these. Ventilators. We hear about personal protective equipment, or PPEs, right? But masks, gloves, and I'm sure you've been hearing a lot lately about the COVID-19 tests. These are all medical devices. Once these products are commercialized, the FDA's work is not done. They continue to monitor our food, our drugs, our medical products, all for compliance. For example, identifying counterfeit and adulterated medical products. Again, I'm sure you've heard recently the alcohol-based hand sanitizers that contain methanol instead of ethanol. Seems simple, right? But wildly different. And these are being sold to unsuspecting customers as we speak. So you've heard previously about the compensation for these positions in regulatory, and it's quite high. As reported in the most recent Regulatory Affairs Professional Society, or RAPS, salary survey, our managers to senior vice presidents are averaging between $100,000 to $350,000 in base pay alone, plus their bonuses, which are anywhere between 20 and 35 to 40% per year of their salary. And these salaries are climbing over time, as you can see by this graphic. You can also see that in 2008, these positions were recession-proof. We were not affected by the recession. And again, the salaries continued to rise. So you might be asking now, where are our graduates working? We have graduates in all of the top 20 medical device companies in the US, as you can see here on the right. So what is the career outlook like for those of us in quality and in medical device regulatory? Well, with the continuous innovation of artificial intelligence, robotics, our wearables, cybersecurity, data integrity, and the ever-changing growing body of regulations that we have in the US and also in the rest of the world, China, Europe, India, all require regulatory and quality participation and oversight. So the world of medical device products and regulations governing them is constantly growing, constantly changing, constantly evolving. And this alone makes this a challenging but very rewarding career. So now I'd like to turn it over to Amelia Spinrad, one of our recent graduates, to share her success story.
Hi everyone, and thanks Susan and USC for having me here today. I'm Amelia, and I'm a recent graduate of the Regulatory Science Master's program. I graduated last summer, and I'm here to share my story and some of my peers' experiences with you today. So I feel like I really came into regulatory science by trial and error. I tried out a bunch of different things. I thought I wanted to be a vet in high school, so I volunteered, but I realized it wasn't for me. In college, I majored in chemistry while also taking many business courses because I always thought there have to be more jobs out there, like at pharmaceutical companies that aren't doctor, pharmacist, lawyer, or scientist. Like there has to be some combination of these things, and it wouldn't hurt to understand both science and business. While in undergrad, I also did bench research, and while I liked the bench, I quickly realized I didn't want to spend my entire career in a lab. I also was interested in government affairs, so I pursued a Fulbright fellowship, and after my year-long program, I was still unsure about what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to work in biotech, and I wondered if I needed a PharmD or a PhD in order to do so. So after some Googling, like a true millennial, I found the regulatory science program on the USC website, and that really piqued my interest. Just like Dr. Pacifici mentioned, it was like all of my passions in one thing. It was science, business, government affairs, both in the US and abroad. And when I glass-doored the regulatory affairs jobs, I noticed the pay was well within a range I was comfortable with. I also realized I could work and get more experience and earn money while also pursuing my master's, since the classes were during the weekends. So I applied and was accepted into the program. Frequently, the program sent out internship opportunities, and within a few months of being in the program, I was working 2 internships, one with a small biotech company focusing on toe fungus, and another as a clinical research coordinator working in irritable bowel disease, where I worked with patients and doctors and pharmaceutical companies sponsoring clinical trials. Even with only a few months of courses under my belt, I felt well prepared for the internship interviews and also the job duties. And after just 1 year in reg sci courses, I was confident that if I wanted to apply for medical or pharmacy school, I would be awarded an interview because I had a really comprehensive understanding of how products are tested and used in patients. For me, I didn't want to do that because I really fell in love with regulatory science and I just wanted to learn more. The Reg Sci program gave me the tools and abilities to even conduct and present my research. You can see the picture here on the slide, which really helped further my public speaking and critical thinking skills. After completing the program and graduating with my master's, I wanted to work for a pharmaceutical company to see drug development from just a molecule to product approval. So I used my connections with USC, and within a couple months of looking and interviewing, I accepted a role at Gilead. Actually, when I was interviewing, a former student of the USC Reg Sci program was even on my interview panel, and this made me really thankful for my #Trojan family. It was really nice to connect with someone like that. In my current role as a Senior Regulatory Affairs Associate, I help with activities across the product life cycle, like annual safety reporting, to helping prepare investigational new drug applications in order to begin clinical trials, and serving as FDA's first point of contact for Gilead. I started at Gilead back in September as a regulatory associate too, and was quickly able to move into a more senior role, and I can see a path for me to advance further. Having a master's has already shown me that I was able to advance quickly in my career, since I had the necessary skills needed to succeed in industry. Problem solving, familiarity with searching for information on the FDA website, and presenting. As I look at the degrees of folks in industry, I would say that most people have some form of graduate degrees, and the people with degrees in regulatory science are able to go to very senior roles. My specialized degree also sets me apart from my peers, and I feel really confident that I have a thorough understanding of drug development. I feel like well prepared for the role I'm in. Overall, I guess I'm just really grateful for all the opportunities that the master's degree opened up for me, which wouldn't have been available without it. So not too long ago, I was in a similar place to a lot of you, and for me it was helpful to hear about others' career paths. So I don't want to just share my career path, I want to share some other student experiences with you now. So this is Ashray, and Ashray has his bachelor's of pharmacy and master's of regulatory science, and he's gained experience in both the pharmaceutical industry and medical device industry. And with his degree and experiences, he can move between both pharmaceutical companies and device companies and be a really key contributor to combination product development. So during his master's, David signed up to complete a TRACS project, like Dr. Pacifici had mentioned. And in the TRACS program, you work with a company on a semester-long project to address a real business need. And David was eventually hired by the company he worked with on his track project, and I'll let him say a few words now.
Hello, my name is David Eunjoo. I graduated from USC's Regulatory Science Department in 2018 with a master's degree in Management of Drug Development. So right now I'm actually in Seoul, South Korea, working for a mid-sized pharmaceutical company called Eunjoo Pharma. I am a manager of business development, and I help my company run several new drug development programs, as well as engage in many in-licensing, out-licensing, and sponsor research activities. So what I found to be most valuable about my RegScience experience is actually the chance to connect with and learn from people with deep industry knowledge. A lot of my fellow classmates, as well as the guest speakers, are actually working professionals in the pharmaceutical or medical device industry. And oftentimes they like to share their experiences and their thoughts on regulatory related issues. And by talking to them, I got a much better understanding on this field of work. And they actually guide me through a lot of my career decisions. So I hope whoever is about to join this program or whoever is in this program will share the same exciting and great experience like I do.
This is Nora. Nora and I worked on a research project together when we were both students, and Nora recently obtained a full-time position in clinical project management at Genentech after completing a competitive internship at the same company. Eric's degree has enabled him to gather a large breadth of experiences. He currently works as a consultant in biotech and has held positions in regulatory, quality, and business development for several companies. And all of these students I just talked about, graduated with their masters within the last few years. And now I want to share Daryl's story with you, if you could go to the next slide.
Hello everyone, my name is Daryl Shaw and I am an alumnus of the USC Regulatory Science program. I graduated back in 2011 and I currently work for Gilead Sciences in Foster City up in the Bay Area as a manager in the Regulatory Affairs labeling team. I would like to give you a quick glimpse of my career and how my degree and experience at USC helped me through my journey in regulatory affairs. I have my undergraduate degree in pharmacy that I got in 2009 and immediately after that enrolled into the USC Regulatory Science program. During the program in the last semester, I attended the Regulatory Science Career Fair and landed an internship at a company called Nutrilite. Nutrilite is a nutraceutical company in Orange County. To be honest, I had never considered the food or the dietary supplement industry as a career path. It was always very clear in my head that it was either pharma or med device that I wanted to enter. But I thought it was only an internship and I would only learn and gain from this experience. So I decided to give it a go. And like they say, the rest is history. I was at Nutrilite for the next 8 years. And somewhere around the 7-year mark, I had felt like my learning had started to plateau and I was completely operating within my comfort zone. I knew professionally I needed to shake things up a bit. So I joined Gilead Sciences in 2018 and have been with the company for the past year and a half. The regulatory science program really gave me that solid foundation for understanding the regulatory environment that is present and ever evolving within the healthcare industry. The program was so essential for the development of my critical thinking skills and strategic approach to challenges. When I switched industries from nutrition to pharmaceuticals, I was able to leverage that education and leverage the network that I had gained from the program to ensure a smooth transition. The USC program is so unique because the professors and guest speakers have an excellent background and such a strong interest in sharing their knowledge. At the same time, the students within the program have such diverse backgrounds and bring fresh perspectives to the discourse. I still remember I learned so much through the group projects. And what really makes this program so special is that it really grooms you into a well-rounded regulatory affairs professional, whether it comes to technical, writing, public speaking, or practical skills. And I can say that till today, I use those skills. Thank you.
So I hope these stories have helped all of you better see where a degree in regulatory science could help you go. And now I'll pass it over to Dr. Church to wrap us up.
Thank you, Amelia. We hope you found today's info session very helpful. If there are any unanswered questions that you may have, please feel free to check out our website. You can also feel free to reach out to any of our faculty. We're very happy to answer any questions you may have, and we're pretty easy to find. And also I want to urge you to also reach out to our faculty, our staff, who are amazing and who can help answer questions that you may have. We would all be happy to speak to you about regulatory science and your future. Thank you for attending today's info session. At this time, we would like to open it up for questions from the audience.
All right, thank you, Dr. Church. Yes, so all the panelists can unmute themselves and feel free to jump in and answer some of these questions. This one's an easy one. I'm just going to go in the order we've received them. Does your program accommodate part-time students?
I can take that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. So first of all, thank you so much for your patience in our virtual info session. Typically, we would have done this on site and get to see each other in person. But, you know, during this COVID pandemic, here we are. And but it's still wonderful to be able to do this, and we'll work out the technical glitches over time. So does your program accommodate part-time students? Absolutely. We have a flexible schedule so that you can start off being a full-time student and then become part-time student if you get a job, or you can, if you are already a working professional, you can go ahead and start with as part-time student and continue working while learning and applying the learnings from our program into your job and advance your career.
Fantastic. Okay, next question. Is there a lot of overlap between the FDA and the EMA? Would someone specializing in regulatory affairs in the US be valuable in other countries?
Does anybody want to take that? I can. Maybe this is Raj. We could bounce back and forth on this. And I'm on the food side and dietary supplement side. It's important that you actually appreciate that there are differences amongst the countries. Do have a perspective from what the FDA will accept and what the EMA will accept. That's the European Medical Association. They're sometimes different standards and different approaches to scientific interpretation. But the international collaboration is really quite exciting, and I'm encouraging you to look at both of those opportunities.
The thing that's interesting is that, you know, FDA is one of the world's oldest regulatory agencies. FDA is over 100 years old. And so our program really focuses in the beginning on the US system, because then you have a comparison, and you can compare how other regulatory jurisdictions regulate products similarly or differently than the way the US does. European Medicines Agency is the only regionally harmonized drug regulatory agency. And they have, you know, similarities and differences, as Dr. Clemens mentions. But, you know, all the industry is global. Most of the successful industry is global. And so when you develop a product, you develop it to be commercialized around the world. So, you know, our students are all thinking globally. Amelia is thinking globally, and especially as you become leaders and you become come into positions with increased responsibilities, your responsibilities become more global and more strategic.
I might add that our DRSC students until this past year take a trip to Europe in the spring and go to the Far East in the fall every other year. So we're very involved in those places, not just Europe.
Absolutely. We do emphasize international outreach in our program.
And part of that international outreach, also we in our dietary supplements course, which I instruct and facilitate, we actually explore the various international differences and similarities in terms of food and dietary supplements. So having that broad base of which the program provides could be very instrumental in being successful in your own professional career.
Fantastic. Next question. Thank you for your presentation today. It looks like the majority of regulatory science jobs are in industry. Are those companies or the regulatory scientists working at them clustered in particular regions, either nationally or globally? Is Southern California a hot spot?
I'll take this one.
Go ahead, Terry.
So it is in general. The data that you saw is from around the US, but it is also clustered in Southern California and California in general. We are the 5th largest economy in the world, and we are also the about the 4th largest in terms of regulatory science in terms of jobs. In doing job searches to come up with the data, I was shocked with the number of California-based jobs, both northern and southern. But it truly is clustered in different regions as well as nationally. So it is a pretty broad span of where regulatory jobs sit. It just depends on where you're willing to go. And our people who come out of our program who are more internationally minded have found it easy to go into either a local, national, or international company.
Maybe Dr. Bain would like to also comment on the medical device market in this Southern California.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Pacifici. So medical devices are pretty broad in scope in the types of devices that there can be, pacemakers or deep brain stimulators, as I said, and all kinds of things in between. But the bulk of the medical device companies are located in the Southern California and Arizona areas. I worked for a little while at the FDA, and the largest inventory of medical device firms were in our area. And at that time, we had about 700 medical device firms in our inventory. And that area went from just below San Francisco clear to the Mexican border and all of Arizona. So within this Southern California region, Central and Southern California regions and Arizona, we had at that time about 700 device companies. The other cluster of device companies are, believe it or not, up in the northern Midwest, up around the Detroit area. And that is because many of the automotive companies that ended up taking a hit 20 years ago, and when the Japanese cars started coming into the US so heavily, they relied on the machine shops around the factories that were manufacturing the cars. So those machine shops were very used to doing technical machining and very tight tolerance testing, very tight tolerance machining. And so those companies had to do something. They had idle machines. So they jumped into the medical device arena. And it was a really good fit. It was a win-win for everybody. And then when the automotive industry started to pick back up again, they realized that these shops realized that it was much more lucrative to stay in the device arena. And so today we have like Medtronics, Minnetonka, right, was all of that came out of the automotive industry. and the upper Midwest.
Fantastic. Okay, we're starting to run a little short on time, so let's do a couple of these that are hopefully short answers. How long does it take to complete your program?
Anywhere from 18 months to 2 years. So, you know, this is a graduate program, and so it's not about getting that degree, but rather it's about establishing that career. And so most of our students are not in a hurry to the finish line, because during your studies with us, you can go ahead and secure intern jobs, maybe 1, maybe 2. As Amelia had mentioned, you then, you know, secure your job, sometimes full-time job, before even you graduate. So it's the end goal is establishing that dream career. So anywhere, but you know, you can do it faster or slower, but usually 18 to 24 months.
Does RegSci encompass the ethics behind neural implants? Sure it does.
It encompasses the ethics behind all of our medical products.
Yeah, any medical product.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that, pretty much. Of course.
We have a separate course on ethics, actually.
We do have it, yes.
Fantastic. Okay, it seems like many students with regulatory science degrees get jobs in other areas like project management or business development. Can you speak about more about why that is?
I can take this one. So to do a lot of the jobs within industry, it's really important that you understand the regulatory requirements, especially like timelines if you go into project management. So with a degree in regulatory science, you can go into a lot of different functions within industry, not just into regulatory affairs.
Here's an interesting question. I currently work in big biotech and am interested in 2 programs, RegSci and drug development. In your opinion, does the latter degree pigeonhole you?
Is Professor Davies here? He's the Director of Management of Drug Development, and I think there's another question.
There he is, yes.
So there's actually been a couple questions on the difference between Masters in Regulatory and Masters in Management of Drug Development. The Masters in Management of Drug Development has 2 or 3 courses that really focus down on the early discovery, the preclinical that I talked about in today's lecture. Beyond that, it expands, and you will take this similar coursework depending on your interest in clinical trial design, clinical trial management, devices, food safety. So the 2 programs are juxtaposed, where the students that come into my program tend to have a little bit more interest in the science on early discovery to get started, but where they end up working really depends on how broadly they expand their interests. So it doesn't necessarily pigeonhole you. It really just depends on what's driving your project and how interested you are in. And what I'm finding is more and more of the students in regulatory are coming in and taking, for example, the 531 or 532 course, because they'd like to have a little bit more details on what is this hits to leads and lead optimization. I mean, they don't want to become a chemist or a formulation scientist, but they hear these words being thrown around, and so they'd like to know a little bit more about that. And so, as the example I gave today on the histamine, the H2 receptor, that gives you a sense of some of the topics that we talk about in our program. So hopefully that answers that question. But no, it doesn't. Neither program pigeonholes you. It really just depends on your interest. RegSci is I think 4 more units that allows you to expand a little bit more, and include things like food safety, whereas the MDD is 32 units rather than 36 units. And also some of the students in the MDD program actually tend to want to work in labs at USC while they're doing their program, and so they're getting some lab experience at the same time versus doing an internship in industry. But either way works.
Thank you, Dr. Davies. This next one I think I will take because we're running short on time. The question is, what does the application process look like? When are the deadlines? I would direct you to, I think that's something more complicated than we can go into right now, but I would direct you to our website, regulatory.usc.edu. And if you go to the /admissions page, so just regulatory.usc.edu/admissions. There's a whole thing about how to apply, how to contact our admissions person, Kristen Feldhausen, what it looks like to go through USC application and deadlines, and also descriptions of the programs as well. Okay.
One more
Oh,
thing.
sure.
If you yeah, I got a note from Kristen to talk about maybe some of the other hubs. We're so focused in Southern California. We talked a lot about Southern California, but when you look at pharma and biotech, there are other big hubs around the country. And we talk about this in our courses, and so you get to be really experts in that. But one of the key hubs is around the New York, New Jersey area, where really the pharmaceutical companies originated, over a century ago. And then there are also hubs. There's a hub in Indianapolis because Eli Lilly is there, and then
Bay Area.
In the Bay Area, absolutely, biotech, startup companies in Boston, San Francisco, and San Diego are three of the main areas where there's a lot of innovation going on.
Fantastic. One thing I just realized that we didn't talk that much about how our own connections with our program allows us to bring in a lot of guest speakers. We bring in speakers from the FDA, from industry, all over the place. So many of our students or former graduates are in industry and higher up. We have people all the way up in management of these companies, and we have a lot of guest speakers. And so not only do you get our fantastic faculty, but you also get some interesting connections with people who are doing the thing out there in the world.
Eunjoo, we've got a couple questions in chat that I wanted to address, as well as a couple more that are in the questions. I don't want to cut this short for students that can hang on a little longer. But one of the questions that's come up a couple times, and we've mentioned this only briefly, is our progressive master's program at USC. And, for example, we have a student watching today, Joyce, who's in our PDD major, our pharmacology and drug discovery undergraduate major. She's a junior, and she wants to know if it's too late for her to apply to the progressive degree program. And Joyce, I think you've heard me talk in class before and no, it's not too late. For one thing, we can definitely work with you on that. You can just send Randa an email because you know her contact directly, but others can contact Kristen. But as you've heard me talk about Max and other students in the program that are finishing their degree right now, at the same time they're doing internships and they've started the progressive master's program. So rather than a 2 to 3 year program, this is a 1 year program that's connected for those that happen to be undergraduates at USC. It allows them to do a progressive master's. And what's really exciting about, and to reiterate, what's exciting about this program is when you think about most master's programs, you're thinking about continuing your undergraduate education Monday through Friday, 2 hours on Monday, 2 hours on Wednesday, and then trying to find a way to get a job at the same time. The regulatory science programs are on the weekends. And so, and they're very intense during the weekends. So they're 8-hour blocks, either on Saturdays or Sundays. But guess what? That allows you to do your coursework on the weekends. And another student asked, can we take this online? Yes, we do have distance learning in this program. So we're kind of answering 2 questions at once. But it allows you to take the program, to be enrolled in taking classes, but at the same time during the week, you're either doing an internship. If you're in a progressive master's, you're able to do an internship that helps prepare you for after you graduate, or you might be picked up by a company and start working. After a short internship, you might start working for that company. And so this is really a strong advantage of our program, is that the weekend experiences allows, because most pharmaceutical companies, most device companies, the majority of their effort is Monday through Friday. So they want their employees Monday through Friday. Our program with weekend learning, or the progressive masters that gives you accelerated learning, is really a fantastic opportunity and to allow you to both continue your education, continue to get your advanced degree, but at the same time do interns or start working in a pharmaceutical industry position that just gets you that much farther ahead. Think of the people graduating with a master's degree and now looking for jobs versus you're in a progressive master's, you're doing your internship while you're finishing your master's. As soon as you get that degree, you've already accelerated and you've moved up the food chain in your company. So yes, progressive masters are definitely something that our undergraduates at USC can do.
Fantastic. And speaking of the distance learning, I just wanted everybody to know we've been doing distance learning for over a decade. We've been doing it longer than most.
From the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, since from the beginning of the program, pretty much. And
yes.
So this isn't new, the teaching over distance isn't new to our people, and we're pretty experienced at it. So I just wanted to add that we didn't just start doing it in the quarantine. We've been doing it a while. So. Okay, what is the main, should we talk about this? Some of these I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's the question about the scholarships. Yes, we do have scholarships available. And in fact, we have the chair of our scholarship committee, Dr. Susan Bain.
Hi, yes, we do have a scholarship program and we award scholarships each semester. And they're usually about $5,000. And they are competitive. We do ask that you submit a letter of a personal statement. And we have different scholarships that are available for the different programs. So we offer one for quality and another for someone who's in our regulatory management program. So they're just a multitude of areas. So we would encourage you to apply for those.
Is there a PhD program or is it just the Doctor of Regulatory Science? Our program currently has just the Doctor of Regulatory Science, which is a program for the working professionals, seasoned working professionals who can contribute to the body of knowledge through regulatory science research. One more question on the chat box. I see, as a U.S. employee, how can I join the course?
USC.
So, yeah, so the U.S. employee can join the course by applying for our degree program. You can choose one of the master's program and apply. And you have to actually, I think, find out through HR in terms of, you know, when you, there is some lead time to qualify for tuition reimbursement or tuition coverage as an employee. Perhaps Dr. Davies may know more about that in terms of different scenarios, but yes.
And you must be in a degree program.
Yes, and I can answer that offline. I was a staff member and took the program itself, got my master's degree and my doctoral degree. So I'm happy to answer your questions offline because it is a very complex issue and it does require some massaging with HR, but I'm happy to answer those questions offline.
And
well, here's a quick yes/no one. How is it possible to apply for the master's program and earn a certificate through the coursework first? I'm pretty sure that's a yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Resounding yes.
Yeah, so actually,
Resounding yes.
That's actually not a short question. For some students that are still a little timid about putting their foot into the water, what they do is they will start by taking a few courses and lock in a certificate.
Yes.
And that's a way to sample our program. And then that certificate, those courses can be rolled forward into the regulatory. Once they say, aha, I really do like this. Then they can say, you know what, I want to fully jump into the lake. And so, but this is a way you can sample without being quite as terrified. You know, maybe you haven't been, some students, maybe you've been in a different industry for a while and you're a little apprehensive about going back to school. You're a little apprehensive about the overall structure of the program. And so this is actually a great way to introduce yourself into our program is you sign up for the certificate, it gets you 1 or 2 courses. And rarely do the students, some do finish the certificate, but many after 1 or 2 courses, they jump right into the master's. They say, you know what, I do want to do this. But yes, feel free to first do a certificate to sample, to lock in that part of the degree, and then move forward. We are as flexible as this is a very flexible program, because guess what? The pharmaceutical industry is a very dynamic program, and there's no box that any one program can fit into.
Yes, very good. Thank you.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
What major would I select if I wanted to go into regulatory science? Well, most of our students, I have to say, like Amelia, has some sort of scientific background, you know. But it's not necessary, because if you think about the biopharmaceutical, biomedical industry, they need, you know, people in the finance department. They need people in the legal department. They need people in the sales and marketing department. And so if you are a business major, you might consider our minor, and that provides you a little bit additional background. If you could be, and if you want to go into the business side of biopharmaceutical industry, in addition to business, having the regulatory science background is really key to getting job, because the industry is so highly regulated that if I were a hiring employer, and you come to me, and there are two people who come to me for a business job, and one has just a business administration degree, and the other person has business administration and regulatory science, you know, I would probably pick the one with business and regulatory science, because of the fact that understanding regulatory science of this business is key to the success of it.
And I would add, for those of you that might be biomedical engineers, there are a lot of positions in regulatory that are in the medical device industry. And these medical device companies love people that have BMEs and then take the regulatory science program and marry the two together, and are hired, I mean, just quickly into medical device companies in their regulatory department.
These are excellent comments, and I support my colleagues. There's also similar opportunities in the food and dietary supplement world. You have a background in biological sciences, chemistry, anything like that, and you say, well, you understand the biology and physiology, dynamics, well, you can go directly into a regulatory and science arena. And matter of fact, here in Southern California, the Southern California IFT section, which is the largest section in the United States, actually has a number of positions available for people with a biology, food science type of background, nutrition for background, for example. Actually, with a regulatory science background, you have really great job opportunities.
One more clarification. If you apply for the certificate program and you are accepted and you complete, if you want, it doesn't necessarily roll into a master's program. The master's degree program is a separate application process, so remember that. The other is our program administrator, Kristen Feldhausen, will be your first point of contact as you inquire further about our program. And so please feel free to contact her directly or go through our website. So
yeah, the regsci at usc.edu goes to Kristen, so she will see that.
And just to reiterate, unlike some programs that you may have thought of that you can only apply once a year, we have rolling admissions in that we actually have admissions 3 times a year. Yep. Admission decisions. So there are, you don't necessarily have to wait, oh shucks, I just missed this, I gotta wait for a whole year. So for sure, contact Kristen and she will set you up on the time frames. But this is one of the advantages of our program, is we try to be as flexible as possible, especially during this COVID era when we know that there's so many different things going on. And so we have flexibility that other programs just don't have. Mm-hmm. And which really is an advantage for both the faculty that want to present this material to the student and to the students that really want to be receptive and to learn this material. So reach out, don't worry about asking a question that you think, oh, this just doesn't make sense. Kristen will work with you. She's just dedicated to this work. We all want you to be successful. So please reach out to Kristen if you have admissions questions, or to any of the faculty if you have more questions about the programs. We are here for you.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's a worthwhile endeavor, because the work that is involved in the biomedical, biopharmaceutical, and the food industry really it safeguards the global population, and so it's a worthwhile career for you to pursue. And the companies are always looking, so that's one of the reasons why we have the flexible rolling admission schedule, is because.
What is the percentage of our students who are already in industry, like as they're taking our, do we know that?
Oh, it's over 95%.
Yeah.
No, I mean while they're with us.
Oh, while they're with, well,
Yeah,
while they're
pretty
getting
high,
their
right?
degrees.
Yeah, most of them get internships. I mean,
If they want to pursue.
absolutely. All right.
Fantastic.
Any other questions? I think we're coming to the end of the session.
Looks like it. We have 22 attendees still on. Anybody else have a question before we close?
I think Emily asked, Eunjoo somewhat answered Emily's question, but she wants to know when are the deadlines, and Kristen can answer that for you again. But Emily, as a PDD major, one of our students in our PDD program, we will work with you to move you right into the program as a successful undergraduate in the PDD. For sure, we would love to have you join us in our master's program. And you've already met many of the faculty that teach in our master's
I know,
program.
Emily.
So,
Hi,
Great.
Hi, Emily. Stay with us,
Hi,
Emily.
So yes, you can go to our website and you can see the deadlines. So this is, we're well into the fall semester, but you can inquire and work with Kristen about joining us in the spring semester.
That's right. Yeah, we have not reached that deadline yet. So. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you for everyone for joining us. Thank you to all our wonderful faculty for participating.
Thank
and
you.
Including Amelia, who's not faculty, but wonderful.
Amelia is hashtag children family.
Children family, A for children family.
Forever.
That's right. Okay, well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Good job. Have a good one. Stay safe.